What's up, guys? Welcome back to Biopilot Arms. Today we're talking about a right delayed is a right denied. We're talking about a decision out of Maine's federal judicial system. It's a good decision. A waiting period was struck down, and we're going to talk about exactly what that means and what it could possibly mean for the future. Let's jump right into that. Federal judge suspends Maine's 3-day waiting period on gun purchases. So last Thursday, federal judge sided with gun owners' rights advocates and suspended a new Maine law that imposed a 3-day waiting period on firearm purchases. In a strongly worded ruling, U.S. District Judge Lance Walker called the waiting period indiscriminate because it applies to all purchasers regardless of whether they pose a threat to themselves or others. He wrote, "Acquiring a firearm is a necessary step in the exercise of keeping and bearing a firearm." He went on to say, "Citizens wishing to purchase a firearm are dispossessed of one for 72 hours exclusively by operation of the Act's requirement that everyone be subjected to a cooling off period, even those who have passed an instant background check at the dealer's counter. That is indiscriminate disposition, plain and simple." Nicole Palmer, executive director of the Maine Gun Safety Coalition, which supported the waiting period, said they fully anticipated a legal challenge to the law from gun owners' rights groups, but she said what was surprising was that this judge granted them a political victory that was not in keeping with the decisions of any of the other judges across the nation who have found that waiting periods are indeed constitutional. They don't prevent anyone from owning guns. What they do is prevent suicide and save lives. That's where you're wrong. See, prior to Bruin, many courts may have, done some mental gymnastics to say, hey, waiting periods are constitutional. However, after the Bruin decision, there is no argument. Text, history, and tradition, there was never a waiting period. There's never been a waiting period. It's a new thing that is only come around since, I think, the invention of the background check, which many people don't realize is also a new thing. Background checks didn't exist until like the 90s. So really the background check system's only been around for like 30 years. 30, maybe I could give you 40. But for the most part, it's not been around that long. And how exactly did people perform background checks prior to the invent of the computer? They didn't, because you didn't need one, okay? And you also didn't have any waiting periods. A right delayed is a right denied. There are no waiting periods for other rights. Like, you don't have to go and say, hey, I'm going to go and do this protest, or I'm going to say this thing, but I have to wait 3 days to say it. You don't have to wait multiple days to go to church. I mean, well, okay. If you only go on Sundays, I suppose, that's a technicality. But you know what I'm saying. Like, if there was church every single day, you don't have to go to the church and say, hey, I'd like to go to church, and then they tell you, oh, you got to wait 3 days to practice your religion. Like, your right to a lawyer doesn't take 3 days of you sitting in. Well, that's also not true, because our system is fucked. So you might sit in jail for 3 days before you get a lawyer, but it's not like it's not mandated by law that you don't get a lawyer for 3 days. Man, trying to come up with these examples just it shows me how fucked our country is, because like unintentionally there are a bunch of these like bullshit things for all of our other rights, but it's not mandated by law, and that's the point. Anyway, a 3-day waiting period, so many things could happen in 3 days. I remember a story of a woman who said she needed a gun and went to go and purchase a handgun because her ex was stalking her and had threatened to kill her. And she went to go purchase a handgun, and there was a mandatory waiting period. And during that waiting period, her ex broke into her house and killed her. That waiting period didn't save anyone. In fact, it killed somebody. And the thing that they argue is that a lot of the suicides are like spur of the moment decisions, and so they go buy a gun and then they shoot themselves. And it's like, okay, a gun is not the only way to kill yourself. If you're very determined, you're going to do it anyway. You're going to jump off a bridge. You're going to crash your car into a brick wall. You're going to slit your wrist. You're going to like hang yourself. Like there's so many other ways to do it besides a firearm. So I don't want to hear this argument of, oh, well, it saves people from committing suicide because they get access to it. Like that's not a real good argument. Now, their argument is more so like, well, it's easier to kill yourself with a gun. Like all it is pulling a trigger and then you're gone. And it's like, okay, I suppose, but you could just close the garage door and sit in your car, and that's also painless. So I don't, like, what's your point? I don't think it's a good argument, and clearly this judge doesn't either, because it's blatantly unconstitutional. Now, it says 9 other states plus Washington, D.C. have some form of waiting periods on gun purchases. They range from 3 days to 10 business days in Washington State and 14 days in Hawaii. That is crazy. You're like, don't get me wrong. 3 days is also kind of crazy, but like 3 days is like, okay, I apply for it on Friday and I get it Monday. Like I gotta wait a weekend. Okay, like that's bad, but it's not like 2 weeks bad. Like, you know the amount of things that can happen in your life in 2 weeks. You know how many like road rage drivers I ran into in 1 week alone this last week? Like, seriously. Now we're in Texas and, you know, everybody's armed, so everybody's pretty polite even when they are being, you know, road ragers on the road. But like in other states, like I wouldn't want to be in that state. But like 14 days, Hawaii, what are you doing? That's crazy. It says with this decision, Maine became an outlier because literally all the other states that have waiting periods also had gun lobby-backed lawsuits to try to overturn them. Again, that was prior to Bruin. Now, this is where I want to talk about how this affects now. See, I believe, and I don't know for sure, but I believe that this is one of, if not the first time that we've seen this be struck down after the Bruin decision. For those of you who don't know, Bruin is basically just a lawsuit that says that the metric by which you have to figure out if it's constitutional or not is text, history, tradition. Is there a law back at the founding and the ratification of the Second Amendment that has a similar law that compares to what you're trying to enact today? That's it. If there isn't one from, you know, almost 200 years ago that you can't look at and go, well, that's similar or the exact same type of law that we're trying to pass today, then it ain't going to fly. It's unconstitutional. So because of that decision, now we have to take a look at everything through that lens. So sure, maybe prior to that, these were states that were like, yeah, it's constitutional, it was ruled that way. But now, because of this hearing, we may see a domino effect where it's like, okay, so now this one has been ruled unconstitutional. What about the next one? And the next one? And then with enough decisions like this, you get split decisions between the different circuits, and then it goes to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court may hear this, and then bam, no waiting periods whatsoever. So I'm excited to see where the future of this goes, because who knows? This could be, you know, within the next 2 to 3 years, there may be no waiting periods in any states, including Hawaii. You won't have to wait 2 weeks of unending fear of your ex trying to kill you or a burglar breaking into your house because you live in a terrible area for 2 weeks before you're able to defend yourself. So I'm very excited. What do you guys think in the comments down below? Do you think this is like, you know, an outlier like they said, or do you think that this is going to create a domino effect that results in, you know, what our nation is supposed to be, massive amounts of freedom? I don't know. Drop a comment down below. You tell me. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that way whenever I post a new video, you guys get to see it as soon as it drops. Anyway, guys, appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you guys next time.